Welcome to our first year welcome meeting. We really appreciate you tuning in today. Welcome obviously to the Northeastern community as well. We're going to give you a little bit of an introduction to who we are and what we do. Again, some ways to get involved. We're going to go through, you're going to meet all three of us today. My name is Rob. I'm a pre-health advisor in the office. We're going to begin with our director, Dr. Hughes, who's going to tell you a little bit about where we are, where we're located, and again, the introduction to our staff. Okay. So I'm going to kick it over to him right now. Let me just find him. All right, go ahead, Dr. Hughes.
Welcome, students. Welcome to Northeastern, and welcome to Boston, and welcome to our PreMed and PreHealth Advising program. We are going to be going over these areas today. I'm giving the introduction, and then another one of our faculty, Rob, will be giving connections, and then finally, Sierra, our assistant director, will be talking about how you're going to get started here in our program. The next slide gives you an idea of who we are. I have been in medical education for 25 years. I was 5 years on the admissions committee at Harvard Medical School and 20 years at BU. I'm a physician and I've worked with PAs before. And I will be working with all of you who are pre-med, whose initials, last name is A through G. Rob will be working with all students who are H through P, and then Sierra will be working Q through Z. We also divide students. I work with all students who are pre-PA. Sierra works with all pre-dental and pre-podiatry, and Rob works with all pre-optometry and pre-veterinarian. So we're the ones that are going to be working with you, and we are very excited to be working with you very soon. Sierra is our assistant director, and Rob is our expert on all things technology and videos, type things like that. So those are introductions. We are located on the 3rd floor of Richards Hall in the center of the Northeastern campus. However, that campus is going through the COVID crisis, as you are all aware of, and we have not resumed being in the office yet. Really, I think all advising services have been closed and will begin in the spring semester. We are debating whether to open this semester or not, and we will keep you appraised of that. But if we're not open physically, we are open virtually for appointments. Our office hours are by appointments, and you can go to the Navigate link here and schedule an appointment with us. For the freshmen, there are group meetings initially before we break to individual meetings. The appointments, we try to see you once a year. We have a great website. We have student clubs that will keep you connected in many other venues. But for the first 2 years, we try to have one appointment a year, and then you can email us certainly with any questions. So I'm going to turn it over to Rob now, but I just want to say I'm thrilled that you are here at Northeastern.
Awesome. Thank you, Dr. Hughes, for that introduction. I'm going to talk a little bit about getting involved on campus. All right. Just another thing to know, we will be sending this out afterwards. So if you see links or information here, please don't feel a rush or a need to write things down quickly. You will get this in the future. But as Dr. Hughes was saying, obviously we are all going through the COVID-19 pandemic, and it's a little bit tricky to navigate ways to get involved, especially off campus. So one of the big things you can do as first-year students at Northeastern is to consider getting involved in a club or organization, which most of them are meeting virtually this year. So there's still a level of involvement, even if you're not on campus or if you're a little bit just unsure about going to in-person things at the moment. The clubs that you see right here on this page are really our core organizations that speak to the professions that we advise for. So one of the biggest on campus is AMSA, the American Medical Student Association, a great resource for, again, getting to know both your peers, but also upperclassmen who may be on a pre-health or pre-med specifically track. There are great resources to talk to you about what co-ops they took, how did they get those connections, did they enjoy those co-ops, what classes they took, which professors they worked with, if they had research experience, how did they find those faculty, or what kind of research do they like? Those are questions that you can ask us, but first-hand experience from your peers is going to be very, very valuable. So we very much advise you to think about joining one of these organizations. AMWA and MAPS, the American Medical Women's Association, and the Minority Association of Pre-Health Students, both groups that focus on more specific issues in healthcare. Oftentimes they'll host panels of female physicians or doctors of color who, again, are in the field and can speak to their experiences, but it also gives students an opportunity to potentially meet a mentor in the field who can work with them one-on-one. So again, great organizations to think of joining. The Pre-Dental Association and the Pre-PA Society and the Pre-Veterinary Club, again, are those more focused organizations on those career paths. Again, great ways to start building those connections and network with your peers and upperclassmen. And then finally, Pre-SOMA. So osteopathic medicine, some of you may not know what that is or may not have heard of it yet. If you meet with one of us, we can certainly tell you more about it. But there are really two pathways to becoming a physician in the United States. One is through the allopathic or MD route, and the other is through the osteopathic or DO route. And there is a student organization called Pre-SOMA that focuses on that osteopathic side. So if you have an interest in exploring that, please feel free to look into joining one of their upcoming meetings. We do want to go over some of the more popular organizations that a lot of our students are involved with and find really beneficial. So we have about 16 we want to share with you today. The first one is the END Initiative, which is really focused on ending typically neglected diseases across the world. So if you have an interest in particularly global health, fundraising, awareness, that would be a great one to look into. NUEMS is another popular one that our students are involved with, especially those that are interested in emergency medicine or may have acquired their ENT license at some point. Again, they usually staff large-scale Northeastern events, so that may be a little bit different this year, obviously. But if you're interested in potentially learning CPR or teaching CPR courses, this might be something to look into, or if you just want to pursue it in the future, getting that base established now. GlobeMed, again, another global health focused organization, works directly with projects in Uganda to increase the public health in that country and work on projects. Global Medical Brigades, another popular one. This is an organization you will apply for them and join a group of students that fundraises throughout the year to take a trip to one of the countries they sponsor during spring break. So you'll work with doctors and dentists to help run local clinics and even work on some public health projects while you're there. Again, I'm not entirely sure how that's going to break down this year, but please reach out to them if you're interested in global experience like that. Peace Through Play was established at Northeastern, and it works directly with local youth to build up emotional development skills through meaningful arts, crafts, activities, that type of interest. So if you are interested in working with youth, especially with local youth, this would be a great organization to join. Same thing with Peer Health Exchange, definitely a rewarding organization. A lot of the students I've worked with specifically have grown significantly through their time here. This is one that you need to actually apply for. If you do get accepted, you'll be trained on how to teach health curriculum in local high schools. So it's certainly challenging, but very rewarding at the same time. If you want to have that teaching aspect to your experience and learn how to work with, again, local youth, this is a great thing to look into. NU Red Cross focuses a lot on awareness and fundraising, especially when it comes to aiding in disaster relief, blood drives, things like that. So if you're interested in providing that sort of response and help, good organization. Students to seniors, again, a different type of population here. I think it's a good idea to try to expand the different populations you work with, especially through service. This organization is very interested in neuroscience, and working with seniors to keep their brains just engaged and active is one really rewarding aspect of this club. Some other ones here, obviously if you're in a biology related major, which many of you will be, the biology club is a great place to start and meet some of the other students in your major who may have similar interests to you and may also be pre-med. Vital is a newer organization. They focus a lot on innovation within healthcare. So if you're interested in exploring different types of career paths or routes within healthcare, this would be the organization to jump into. They often have panels with speakers who followed, again, a non-traditional path in healthcare. Health Disparity Student Collaborative. So this is a group of students that kind of recognized the difference in healthcare between underrepresented population in Boston and everyone else, and is trying to bridge that gap through awareness and, again, fundraising. Global Public Health Brigade is very similar to the medical brigades, just focused on those public health projects in other countries. Neurons, a lot of the behavioral neuroscience majors may end up being part of this. They focus on research in neuroscience. So if you have that focus and interest, that would be a great place to launch that. Alpha Epsilon Delta is the PreHealth Honor Society. They do have obviously standards for joining their organization, but if you're interested in being part of that, you would just look into what their standards would be. Phi Delta Epsilon is the PreHealth fraternity. I believe that's actually the PreMed fraternity on campus. So again, if you want to have that kind of close-knit organization to belong to that are, part of this similar path that you're on, you want to look into joining that organization. And finally, Beta Beta Beta, somewhat similar to Biology Club, has that focus on biology research more specifically. So again, if you are interested in research in the biology lens, that would be a great place to start. Just some other tips in terms of using the resources available to you. I know I've said it many times already, but talking to upper class students in your major is hugely beneficial in terms of the experiences that they have had, the opportunities they've taken advantage of that can help direct you to where you want to go. Also considering those conversations you are going to be having with faculty and your academic advisor about your path over the next couple of years. Outside of the pre-med prerequisites, which of course you'll talk about with us, you may want to think about what other courses you take in your own major that will benefit your career path or co-ops that you jump into. So think about those upper level courses you'll eventually take. Another point that I always bring up is making sure that you're connecting with faculty. Again, I know this can be difficult, especially in larger classes. And obviously if your course is virtual, but make use of whatever resources you have, including virtual office hours, to connect to faculty so they know who you are and can recognize you. Eventually down the road, it's important that you'll be able to ask a faculty member if you're applying to one of these graduate programs for a letter of recommendation. And to have that close relationship with one of them is going to be very important. Other things you can look at, peer tutoring program, again, so that program focuses a lot on entry-level courses. If you're having trouble or you're struggling in your entry-level courses this year, think of reaching out to them for additional support. The Writing Center is available to help with written assignments, resume building, cover letters, that type of thing. So please think of that if you're struggling there. And then again, if you're looking for accommodations in any of your courses, the Disability Resource Center is the place to go. And again, these are all linked in this presentation that we'll send out to you. And then finally, for my part, I want to talk a little bit about community service, which again will be a little bit trickier this semester due to COVID. The first place I'd like you to look is our own Center for Community Service at Northeastern. That is the purpose of their office. They can really connect you to some of the more active sites in the community this semester. Some sites are a little bit slower to open. Typically, a lot of our students will volunteer at local hospitals, and some of those programs just haven't really kicked off just yet. So until then, they're a good place to find active opportunities. Our own website also has a large list of health-related opportunities, but also virtual volunteering opportunities, which really started to spring up this summer when students were looking. So if you're not comfortable going back into the community just yet, those also exist for you just to stay involved at some level. A lot of students' first exposure to getting involved in community service is through a service learning course. So if you have that opportunity or you see that as a possibility, think of enrolling in that. It's a good way to establish yourself in the community, understand where to go, how to get somewhere, going with your classmates. It's a little bit more comfortable and potentially will lead to you continuing in that opportunity going forward. And then finally, I'd say think about something like Alternative Spring Break, which is similar to Global Medical Brigades. It's a trip that you can go on during a spring break. Usually it's within the US where you can participate in a service activity for that week. So again, I'm not sure how travel is going to work this year, but certainly in the future, think about doing something like that. And with that, I'm now going to pass the ball over to Sierra to talk about how you can get set up with our program specifically. So let me just, oh, all right.
Hi, everyone, and thank you, Rob, for that introduction and for telling us ways that our students can get involved within their campus community, campus resources, and within their local communities. I'm now going to kind of turn the conversation towards the ways in which you can get started as a pre-health student at Northeastern University. And for all of you, the first way to really get started with our program, if you haven't already done so, and I know many of you have, is to register your medical applicant portal. So Medical Applicant Portal is an online resource designed specifically for Northeastern students and alumni to identify themselves to our program as being on a pre-health path. Through the Medical Applicant Portal, we as advisors can help you as potential applicants to a health professional school along your journey to medicine and ensure that you are the most competitive applicant possible at the time that you wish to apply. Having a Medical Applicant Portal assures that you've, one, identified yourself as either currently planning or preparing for a future as a healthcare professional. And it also puts you on our email list to receive important announcements and communications from our office, including our monthly newsletter. It's important for you guys to know that MAP is for Northeastern only. It's not your medical school application, and it does not necessarily commit you to apply to a health professional school, but rather it's a means for which it's what we use for communication, for preparation for your application, and later it's where we will start to organize the materials that you will use on your application to medical school. So whether you want to scan this QR code now or later when we email the PowerPoint presentation to you, it takes about 30 seconds to a minute for us, for those who are tech savvy, to set up and register their medical applicant portal. Once you have a portal, you'll notice it's very robust with many areas that you can fill out, all of which you'll develop by the time you apply to medical school. Other ways that you want to stay connected to our office, in addition to registering your medical applicant portal, is to set up an appointment with your individual advisor. Dr. Hughes did a very nice job earlier of denoting who advises which students. I'll recap that Dr. Hughes advises all pre-med students, last names A through G, and all pre-PA students. Rob advises all pre-med students, last names H through P, all pre-veterinary, and all pre-optometry students. And me, I advise all pre-med students in the last part of the alphabet, Q through Z, all the pre-dental students, and any pre-podiatry students. Through EAB Navigate, which is an appointment calendaring system you can find in your My Northeastern, you'll be able to book group advising appointments for first-year students. So when you go to EAB Navigate, you'll want to select the first-year appointment that most represents you as an advisee, and we look forward to meeting with you soon. And finally, the best way to stay in touch with our office often is by following us on social media. We try to be very present on social media and posting local community events, virtual events, and also our own internal events and workshops that we host for students. So our handles, NU PreHealth, kind of across the board, and definitely try to connect with us so that we can share with you important information regarding events and workshops and webinars happening around campus and within our local and global communities. The most robust source of resources and information regarding all things pre-health at Northeastern is our website. So undergraduate.northeastern.edu/prehealth is the place to go to answer a majority of questions that you might have about the academic and experiential preparation that you need for medical school and other health professional programs, and information on applying. I would say that most often questions that you have can be answered by our website. So now that you know the different ways that you can get involved on campus with your local community and the ways that you can connect with our office, it's time for you to get started as a pre-health student at Northeastern. I'm sure many of you already have chosen a major, but if you haven't, explore major options. The great thing about health professional schools is they don't have a preference for what major you choose. You should choose a major based off of your own interests and passions within education and for your future profession. That being said, some majors do overlap pretty extensively with prerequisite courses. Any of the links below under review will give you a list of common required courses for the health profession program of your choice. Primarily, it consists of required courses in subject areas of biology, chemistry, physics, math, and the humanities. Each program or health profession type will have distinct program requirements, so we encourage you to explore the handouts linked on this page to learn more about the specific courses that you'll need to take as a pre-health student on that pathway. Experiential preparation is also going to be a really important part of preparing for a health professional school. As first-year students, we would encourage you to focus on the community engagement aspect of experiential preparation this year. That includes getting involved on campus through student clubs and organizations, and even in your local community, whether that's a virtual opportunity or an in-person opportunity. This year, you might also begin to consider the ways in which you would like to engage clinically and through research. These are other areas of experiential preparation that many health professional schools will look for applicants to have. But as I mentioned before, focus on community engagement, prioritize your academics, and ask for help and utilize resources when you need them. Alrighty, so with that, folks, we would like to open up the session to any questions that you might have. Feel free to type those in the group chat, and myself, Rob, and Doug will do our best to answer those questions for you. So we'll give you a minute to maybe think of some questions that you have. So Rob, do you want to answer the pre-optometry question for us?
Sure, yeah. So the question is there a dedicated pre-optometry major for undergrads? Just like with the other professions, there is not, again, a dedicated major. Optometry programs are open to applicants of all majors. So again, as long as you're looking at the prerequisite courses for optometry schools, which again, we can talk about, you'll be eligible for those programs.
Awesome. And I'm going to answer two questions about the medical applicant portal. Really, the medical applicant portal is something that you want to register as soon as possible to ensure that you can get on our email list. But in terms of filling out the entire medical applicant portal, that will not come until the year you're applying to your health professional program.
I see a question on here. How do we join? Oh, go ahead, Sarah.
I was just going to answer the question, how do we join the clubs, organizations that
Yes.
were on the pages that Rob reviewed regarding clubs and organizations? At the bottom, there is a link to Northeastern's Engage webpage, and that is where you'd be able to learn more about those clubs and organizations and find out information on how to join.
There's another question about having registered MAP but not having received any pre-med emails just yet. So if you registered your MAP just recently, the next email you should be getting is our October newsletter in just about a week or two. So keep an eye out for that and let us know if you don't receive that email.
I'll also answer Quincy's question about MAP indicating that it's not registered. That's actually just a link error that IT needs to correct. So as long as you've registered your medical applicant portal, and when you are redirected to log in, it takes you directly to your portal, you're all set. If you receive an error message that your MAP account isn't registered, just know that that's just a link error in the My Northeastern portal, and we're working to get that resolved with IT. So nothing's wrong on your side.
There's also a few questions about meetings and like what typically happens in a meeting we should talk about. Definitely in your first year at Northeastern, we'd recommend you booking a meeting with your assigned advisor. We will give you an overview of the program. We'll talk about your required coursework and again, ways to get involved, as well as your plan and what you see for your future. You know, what interests you about the specific career path you want to go into, ways to, again, get more exposure there. And again, what your trajectory at Northeastern looks like in terms of how long you plan to stay here, your co-op structure, that type of thing. So those are the questions you can expect to cover in a typical meeting. And again, meeting once in your first year is what we recommend.
There's a question here about if you need to meet with your advisors to get involved with co-ops. So your pre-med advisor is certainly a great resource for you to bounce ideas off of with regard to different co-op opportunities. But the primary resource that you will want to utilize for getting involved with co-ops is your co-op advisor, which as a first-year student might not have been assigned to you yet. Students do not go on co-op in their first year at Northeastern. But as you progress in your time at Northeastern, you will be enrolled in an introduction to co-op course. You will have an assigned co-op advisor, and you'll learn more about the co-op opportunities and structure.
Yes. Also, a few questions here about research. In terms of contacting professors, again, there is the undergraduate research website at Northeastern that has a list of currently available opportunities. It's a little bit slimmer this semester due to COVID. But if you do have a professor in mind you want to reach out to, just be honest with that professor about your current level of experience and what you're hoping to get out of a potential mentorship or work position with them. Do your best, I'd say, especially in this semester. We don't expect you to jump into every single aspect of the pre-med experience in this first semester, but certainly keep your ear to the ground in terms of what opportunities are opening. Typically, a lot of students will start their research on campus in a campus lab, but again, co-op and outside work positions do exist in research as well as summer research opportunities and other programs offered by schools around the country. So we'll advertise those as they pop up through our newsletters as well.
There's a question here about medical school programs to see what requirements they should be planning to cover in your years here. So when it comes to pre-med, it's pretty consistent across the board. Medical school prerequisite courses and the types of experiences schools look for in applicants are pretty consistent. So you wouldn't necessarily need to research particular medical schools as a first-year student. Most pre-meds don't start to consider which medical schools they'll apply to until closer to when they're applying and actually in their year of application. That's a bit different for pre-PA students. PA programs are very unique in the different prerequisite courses that they do require, the number of clinical hours you might need to obtain for certain schools. So we would say that for pre-PA students, creating a preliminary list of about 8 to 10 schools in your first year is going to be very helpful for you to track your progress and ensure you're meeting the program requirements specifically. But for the other programs for which we advise, there seems to be much more consistency with those specific requirements, and those first year handouts that were presented earlier in our PowerPoint would be your go-to to reference for what those requirements are.
There's a question about the undergraduate research website. Just to clarify, the website is undergraduate.northeastern.edu/research. That is where the current research opportunities are being advertised for, if you want to take a look there. Another question about how early students should start clinical shadowing and volunteering. Again, like I said, with research, you want to do your best this semester, but again, those campus organizations will be great ways for you to find those local opportunities. The Community Service Office, another great resource to look into what you can start right now. Again, if there's not a lot of on-the-ground volunteering you can do, those virtual volunteering opportunities certainly exist. So, you should be able to get involved in something this semester if you want to just get some feelers out there and look at different opportunities or populations you'd like some exposure to. Again, with shadowing, we do expect that it's going to be a little bit trickier this year with some restrictions in hospitals and clinical locations, so you may need to wait a little bit, but certainly it's okay to reach out to doctors or healthcare practitioners to see what they're comfortable with at the moment.
I will say, for any folks in the audience who are pre-dental, it does seem that some private dental practices have started to allow shadowing again. However, hospitals are still waiting to see what happens, and have not yet lifted restrictions with regard to shadowing because of the pandemic.
You also want to think about the sequencing of your volunteering and shadowing. There is no hard, fast rule for the number of hours that you'll need, but 300 hours is robust for volunteer work. So if you're going to be here 4 years at Northeastern, and if you're going to apply to medical schools or PA schools in your 3rd year, you may want to think about getting 100 hours in your 1st year, like Peace Through Play, a community type activity that's structured, set up by the university. In the 2nd year, you may want to volunteer in a hospital. And in the 3rd year, you may want to do some like 100 hours in a homeless shelter that are nearby, walking distance, like Rosie's Place for women. In your 2nd year, when you're doing your hospital volunteering, you may keep an eye out for a physician, a DO, or an MD, or both, or a PA, and ask them if you can shadow them. You need about 50 to 100 hours of shadowing those individuals so that they can write you a very strong letter when you actually apply to the schools that you're going to.
Any other questions coming in, please feel free to type them in.
And I'll just throw out a quick pitch for Peer Health Exchange. So I know that Peer Health Exchange is one of the student organizations that typically goes off campus into Boston Public Schools and teaches health education. They are planning to do that virtually this year. So it is a wonderful way to engage with your local Boston community in a virtual capacity. And a lot of the student clubs and organizations we mentioned do have ways in which that they engage with their community through volunteer work, through service. So certainly, that can be a good way to start getting involved with your off-campus community, even through a on-campus involvement, if that makes sense. Rob, do you want to answer that question about the pre-vets?
Yes, just so that come in. So the pre-vet population is certainly a smaller population at Northeastern. There is the NUPVC club that serves as the hub for that population to, again, talk about different opportunities and ways to make themselves advantageous in the application process. And there's also, I am striving to help create that environment too for a closer knit pre-vet population at Northeastern. So we definitely have some programming planned throughout the year to keep everyone kind of hopefully more in touch and connecting better with some of the schools like Tufts that are local. But yeah, that's kind of the feel for the pre-vet population here.
Any other questions, folks? Well, Rob, Dr. Hughes, and myself will stay on the line if there are questions that still continue to trickle in. But for the most part, I think, we covered what we were hoping to for today. We'll send you a link to the PowerPoint presentation and also to the recording. So all the links that were in the presentation, you'll have access to. We hope that this session was informative in that it showed you some ways that you can get involved with your campus community and your local communities as a first-year student, identified some resources to you so that you can prioritize your academics and ensure success in your courses, and also demonstrated the ways in which you can get connected to our office as a pre-health student. And for those of you who have not yet met with your individual pre-health advisor, we very much look forward to meeting with you in a first-year advising appointment. So with that, thank you all for attending today. If you want to stay on the line to ask a question, please do so. Otherwise, that concludes the formal programming for today. And we look forward to working with you throughout your time as a Northeastern student and until you start your health professional programs.
Thank you all.
Thank you.